Hi, everyone. Hi, Val.
Hi, Jane. Nice to connect with you.
It is. Now, my fingers and toes are all crossed that this technology will hold up and that my working of it will come together okay. I did jot down a few things that I thought we could cover in this initial session, just to kind of set the scene a little bit for what we might hope to achieve, or what we intend from these sessions ongoing. Are you happy with that?
I love that. But I think we need a title, Jane. Are we going to call this Coffee Catch Up or Dietitian Speechie Coffee Morning? I don't know. We'll have to think of a name.
We will have to think of a name. Maybe we can enlist a bit of support if anyone has a good idea. Maybe we run our thoughts through what we would like to achieve, and then anyone who has a snappy name for us is very welcome to volunteer.
Love it.
So initially I thought it would be good to introduce ourselves. I know that a lot of people know who you are, Val.
But and you, Jane.
Who you are and what we do, and I guess how we've come to be doing this session today.
Great. Do you want me to start? Okay, so I am Val, and I have owned Let's Eat Pediatric Speech Pathology for 7 years now, Jane. In a very small kind of working mother capacity, I think is how I would describe my business. So this year, Ashley has joined us. But until then, it was just me really building it from a day to a day and a half to now 4 days. So time has flown. We're based in Wallsend, and we're a speech pathology practice that works in feeding only. So 0 to 16, from tube weaning, breastfeeding, gagging on lumps, bottle feeding, and really 80% of our caseload would be fussy eating and restricted eating in children. And I think that's how, we share so many clients.
Yeah, and I think our evolution in our respective fields it's been quite similar. I feel that, I started very much in a part-time capacity, and then I think really before I had children, but certainly after I had children, became more and more interested in feeding children and child nutrition and what sorts of challenges there are just day to day in a household where you're feeding kids. And then that kind of led me into being more and more interested in the behavioural aspects as well as I think what we prepare for well at uni is the scientific or the nutrition principles, but the behavioural stuff is what puts that all into practice, and without that piece, it's really difficult to make inroads. And I guess that kind of prefaces the aim of our sessions as well, I think, with these videos, that I guess my aim would be to provide families with support and some practical strategies in dealing with those daily challenges in children who are, growing and developing as we would expect, but also in families where children are not growing and developing the way we would ultimately like them to, and in a way that's healthiest for them.
Because it brings a lot of stress, I think, for families. And I think that overlay of anxiety makes feeding even harder, because with each power battle, parents, go one step forward, and then there's, a child who kicks up another wall, and then the parent doesn't know, do I push further, do I step back? I think behavioural anxiety makes feeding really hard. As both parents, you and I as parents would attest to, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think it's really easy to second guess yourself as a parent in all facets of parenting, but it can be particularly problematic in feeding, because there is a power play, and it's tricky to know sometimes, as you say, how far to push, and hopefully with a few guiding principles from us and in their sessions will help parents have the confidence to kind of stick to their guns and know what is, normal child behaviour and what they can really support their children, and how they can support their children in developing healthy eating behaviours that will continue with them for life.
I agree. Because I know you well, and I know that this is something I've learned from you. I'm going to just put it out there because I'm very unscripted in what I do. How many kids do you have, Jane? How old are they? And have you had any feeding issues or feeding food fussiness or anything with your kids?
We should just let everyone know that I quite like to be, even though I'm chaotic in my life, this kind of thing makes me feel very nervous. And so I've had, put a few dot points together.
You have. I have an email list here. And I've just taken a tangent when we didn't have this on the script.
Yeah, Val, I can't say it here. I'm feeling... Val, on the other hand, is so spontaneous and comfortable with this format that she just is happy to roll with whatever. I can hardly remember your question. I've got 3 children. I remember that much. I've got my eldest is 16, and then a 14-year-old as of the weekend, and a 10-year-old, all boys. I haven't probably come to working in child nutrition the way I know some other dietitians have internationally. Some of the well-known international dietitians who who I follow closely have had children that have had a medical issue or serious eating and feeding difficulties. I haven't had any of those with my boys, but I think just the day-to-day stuff and working with families that have children with some of those really challenging behaviours and health conditions has put that into perspective a lot more for me. But no, I haven't had anything.
But they would have pushed your boundaries, Jane. I know, like the issue of chocolate and sugar, and we've been watching Back in Time for Dinner. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's great if anyone's seen it. And the topic of sugar came up, and cake, and the I quit sugar kind of phenomenon. And my soon-to-be 9-year-old said, I love sugar and I like sugar in my banana bread. Whereas the I quit sugar lady made up a banana peel cake. I know it had I don't know, not maple syrup, but one of the healthier versions of sugar and banana peel. And yeah, I feel like as parents, we would come across those battles too, the high processed food, obsession with sugar and party food and junk food. And each one brings its challenge. And what I find, what I'd really love to know from you is as they get into teenagehood, teenagers, they go out and have, out and eat with their friends. And you can't control it as much as you could if it was a preschooler.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen the same. Well, no, it was a podcast that I'd listened to called Little Green Pod, which is fantastic. It's an ABC podcast. And one of the interviews that was done on that podcast was with Sarah Wilson from I Quit Sugar, and she's talking about her banana peel banana bread as well. So I know exactly which one. Yeah.
Have you tried it, a banana peel banana cake? I'm so intrigued. I need to look up the recipe.
I haven't. I did look up the recipe out of interest. And I do love the concept because in the Little Green podcast, it was being discussed in the context of waste and reducing food waste. So that was really interesting, but I haven't been motivated enough to try it. Plus, I also feel, and that we can discuss this at future sessions, but there's nothing wrong with sugar. There's nothing wrong with fat or protein or any food. It's all about, as
moderation
side is an acceptable frequency of all of these things and not labelling them good and bad. And so I feel that the I Quit Sugar, although there's lots of merit in reducing sugar in our daily intake, I'm certainly not hardcore about making recipes that don't have sugar in them. I could take you for a tour of the house. I won't do that, but show you what's in the fridge. I've been baking on the weekend. I think it's really important to keep those things in the mix so that they don't feel like they're out of bounds and really naughty, because labelling foods as good or bad obviously has lots of other complications down the track. And yeah, so
and that forbidden food context. I'm glad you said that, because I watched the show and then felt slightly guilty that I'd made the 101 cookies with condensed milk and white flour and butter. That was what the kids put in their lunchboxes this morning for school. Anyway, back to you, Jane. Where are we up to after question 1?
What's on the list? Okay. Oh, what were the intended audience? I think we've probably covered that.
Yeah, so we're pitching it at parents, kind of coffee chat with parents, you and I, and we're going to chat for 10, 15 minutes about really a topic every week, or every month, a topic every month, and really it'd be nice to hear from parents what they would like to know about. We have commonly asked questions. I know you and I have talked about this with grazing and junk food and food context and so forth, calories, iron, but what do parents want to hear about? And we'll give it our best go once a month with coffee, and maybe more.
And to ensure that we're keeping the discussion relevant to people who are interested in tuning in, can you explain, Val, how people can post questions or comments in response to our sessions, which we might be able to address?
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to use social media. I think we're both going to post it on this video and every other video on our Facebook pages and YouTube. And as we get a little bit more familiar with it, we'll work out and do it live. And that way, it can be a little bit more interactive with parents asking questions as we go. But I think having one topic every month at least gives parents, a focused, or at least me, a focused topic to talk about, not take 100 tangents in the 10, 15 minutes that we have. So yeah, social media. They can always email us and ask us, of course, but I think social media helps other parents think about, well, is that something I want to know, or is it something else?
That sounds good. And do we want to finish on a useful tip or one of our handy hints, or something that we might generally share with parents to support them in supporting their children to eat well or make changes in their food intake?
Are you going to make me go first as well?
Of course.
All right, I'm going to tell you a story that I learned from Karen Young. She is a psychologist who wrote the book Go Warrior, and Ashley and I use this all the time since I learned the little scenario. And it's whenever you're making changes around your child, you want to be the cool, calm chicken. But I need to tell you what cool, calm chicken is about first. So Karen says there's a psychologist who had a little chicken, and he stared down this little chicken, and I don't know how he quite got this past ethics in the 1960s, but anyway, the little chicken lies down and is stressed, and after 3-4 minutes it gets up, and then he stares it down and has another chicken beside it, and so both chickens lie down. And then they look to each other to decide who's going to come up first. If there is a calm chicken running around and playing, the chicken that's lying down is more likely to get up faster and be back normal again. And the theory behind, and I'm sure it's twisted and it's not quite what it was in the 1960s, and I'm sure I didn't quite explain it as well as Young did. But the concept is that if we are making changes around a child with food, as much as something as simple as, you've plated up the meal, and if they don't eat it, they don't get anything else until the next meal time. If you present that with stress and anxiety and insecurity on your side, going, I don't know if they're going to eat it. Why did the speech therapist tell me to do that? And your child feels that, they're going to pick up off your cues as two little chickens. But if you play the cool, calm chicken wandering around the house and being really calm and this is how we're going to do it, then the child will mirror those cues. So be the cool, calm chicken is my feeding tip.
That's a great tip, and I don't know how you pull these things out so spontaneously, Val. Now I'm thinking of my tip. It was actually, I think, along similar lines in as far as and from a nutrition perspective, we all have certain food rules that we probably have gathered over time and throughout our life, and maybe not even be that aware of it. But those sorts of beliefs and rules about food are often really, quite powerful influence on how our children eat and how we feel about and how we eat. And so I guess I just encourage people to be aware of or think about the sorts of things that maybe make you feel a bit unsettled or stressed about food and eating and with your children, and reflect on whether that's also related to your beliefs about food. Is it something, I'm trying to think of an example.
I love it, Jane. It's like where we were taught as kids to finish our plate because the children in Africa are still starving. And so if the child doesn't finish their plate, or where a therapist says, you know, whatever they eat, parents decide, children decide, you know, parents provide, children decide, so the plate, then that's okay. They're obeying their internal food cues. But if you as a parent grew up being made to finish your plate, I guess that would sit really uncomfortably with you.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing to remember is that children, when you look really closely at, often in our appointments, I'll put through, as you know, Val, use a computer program to just have a look at a snapshot at what a particular child might be eating and how closely they're getting to meeting their nutrient requirements. And it's surprising how often they're doing a lot better than as parents we feel they're doing. I guess kind of trusting that children, not always of course, but children are often doing better, and parents, you're doing better on the nutrition front than you give yourselves credit for. And just to be the cool chicken and trust that other things will fall into place, and hopefully we can help you with some strategies and a few guiding principles for how to help those things fall into place and make it less stressful. But yeah, being the cool chicken and kind of trusting that the process that we work you through over the next few sessions will help with your child getting the nutrition they need. They're often doing, and you're often doing, much, much better than you think you are.
I love that. That's a perfect way to end it, Jane. We're doing all right as parents, aren't we? Expectations of social media tells us to, but we're doing all right.
I think so, yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Val. That was good. We look forward to the next session.
Sounds good. We'll put it out. Tell us what you'd like parents to talk about as a topic, and we'll give it our best go in our next coffee chat.
Great. Thanks, Val. Talk soon.
Jane. Bye.
Bye.